Hi everyone, my name is Wase. I'm a beginner and amateur landscape photographer, and today I wanted to talk about fog photography. This is a topic that is something that I find very useful for me, just because fog photography enables me to go out to my local landscapes, such as forests, and create beautiful images simply because of the conditions of the weather. And I think as a beginner, it has become one of my most sought after conditions to create my most favorite images. So today I'll go over kind of the different parts of venturing out and exploring your local areas during fog and what you need to do, at least from my perspective, what I've been doing to ensure that I can get the best conditions and the best possible outcome to bring back the most number of keeper images from my trip. So let's start off with planning. And planning for fog photography can come in, I guess, two different parts. One is the conditions, and the other is the location. So usually for planning for the conditions, I have a couple of different weather apps that I'm monitoring continuously, looking for different situations where I might see fog appearing. Usually it'll be in the beginning of the day, early morning before sunrise, and during sunrise as well. I'll usually check multiple apps to see if the conditions are consistent between them, just to make sure that the different data points that they are using align well and I have the highest likely chance of seeing fog. The second part, which is knowing where you have to go to during fog photography, is I think very important, just because you have a limited amount of time when fog comes in, especially if you're like me who has work in the morning afterwards as well, and I need to make sure that I'm utilizing my time most efficiently. So most of my photography is focused in the local areas, and so I spend a lot of my time going out during the day, in the evening, on weekends, just to make sure that I can go out and find a composition. Maybe I'll go there during sunset and hope for composition there, but think that if I come back during fog, it will look more amazing. I came out here looking for fog, and we have a nice inversion here, but it just keeps getting pushed back. Um, but it's okay. I think it's still a good day to be out, and I can still pick out some intimate details into the fog that I really can't get too much of over here. So the weather can still be very fickle, and looking back at the last time I went out for fog photography, I can see that when I got there, I didn't really have the fog that I was expecting. And then with those conditions, I could potentially reimagine different compositions because I still had some level of fog with which, for example, I could focus a little bit more on the foreground and capture more things in the distance, but with still enough separation. But then the trouble comes when you switch to a different mode of thinking of what you want to do once, for example, I noticed that the fog wasn't coming in as strongly as I wanted, and then the conditions shifted very quickly. Never mind, I stand corrected. It seems like the fog is moving in a little bit more now. Uh, and hopefully, even though I'm not able to get all the different trees that I wanted to, I'll be able to get a better composition maybe down the road, back up the trail a little bit. So we'll see. Afterwards, I had to kind of reshift my mind again to then planning for, okay, now what do I do? I didn't have that much time left when I saw that the fog was moving in, so I wanted to utilize it more efficiently. And that involved actually looking at the fog, seeing where the wind was pushing it, and then thinking about whether or not I wanted to go further into the trail and that would give me the best shot, or if going back I would be able to get better shots, and with that also be on time for work. So I'll briefly talk about the camera settings that I use for fog photography. They aren't wildly different from my normal landscape photos. I try to use, I guess, f16, ISO 100 with a tripod so that I can get the least amount of noise in my photos. I will try and stick with aperture priority most of the time, but I will transition over to manual if I need to handhold it, for example, just because if I find an image of a bird flying in the fog and I'm able to capture that silhouette, I would really like to be able to do that with a faster shutter speed and with more versatility from using my hands rather than sticking on a tripod. Another thing to note is that usually if you have dense fog, focusing becomes troublesome. So you would have to resort to manual focus. to override any of the discrepancies in your autofocus system. That might take a little bit more time, but I think I'd rather be 100% certain that I have everything that I want in focus, just so I can make use of the conditions that I don't know when would appear again. Now, the thing that I want to focus on the most is composition, because for me at least, that is the primary goal in photography, to create images with fabulous compositions. In fog, that becomes a lot simpler. But with that simplicity, you also want to make sure that your bar is set higher. Just because the conditions are optimal, you want to maximize those times. So I found this gorgeous tree over here, and I just love the way how it curves around. And because of the fog in the back, I don't have to worry too much about those branches getting lost. And I am trying to focus all the way over here. Nothing's really moving around, so I don't need to worry about the shutter speed too much. And then maybe I'll just do a little bit of a focus over here as well to then get a focus stacking going, just because I don't think I'll be able to get everything in focus, but we'll see. When the fog comes rolling in, I really have to avoid running around looking for different compositions just because everything looks beautiful. But I found something that works generally well for me, so I will plan out different places within the location that I've decided to go to for my prime shots. But along the way, if I do find certain scenes that really draw my eye, I know, or I guess I have an idea that there was something there that caught my eye, and so I will try and stop to take a photo, because photography for me is in those moments. It's when you see something that catches your eye, but you know that the conditions are ephemeral, so you try your best to capture those moments and being able to bring it back from your camera, editing it, and then enhancing it to recreate the feeling you felt when you first saw it. That is when everything really works out. So this is what usually happens when I'm going back and trying to go back to work. I found these collection of trees all the way over here. They're bright red and utterly gorgeous. You can see a little bit better on my screen. So that's the composition I'm going for. A little bit of, I guess, room on both the top and the bottom, and focusing it on the trees right there. Yeah, pretty simple. f16, ISO 100, and aperture priority. It's definitely gotten a lot foggier, and I would love to keep on exploring this area, but I think kind of have to go for work as well. So headed back, but along the way I'll probably stop by, see if I can figure out any other decent compositions. As an amateur photographer, I think it can become really frustrating for me to see conditions that are sticking around longer than I expected, and then having to forego them because you have other obligations you have to go to, such as work or family, etc. Those are still very important. It's just a little frustrating. So you kind of have to make the most of it. Try to wake up as early as possible so you can make the most out of the conditions in the time that you have, balancing with everything else. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any comments about fog photography or you want to share your experience and photos, comment below. Hopefully I'll see you next time.